Hey Meg, it's Nicola. How are you today?
Good, Nicola. How are you?
I'm doing good. Just ran into the house. My children decided at the last minute that they had to have Little Caesars, so.
Oh my gosh, I understand.
Nothing like waiting till 15 minutes before Mama's supposed to be doing something and say, hey Mom, I'm hungry. Go get me a Little Caesars.
Yep. I have two boys, and their timing is impeccable like that as well.
I think that's all children.
Mhm.
Well, let's go ahead and get started. If you don't mind, we can go ahead and start by introducing yourself and tell us what genres you write in.
What was the second part of what you said? I'm sorry.
What genres do you write?
Oh, what do I write? Okay, yeah, my name is Meg Dafhal, and I write horror suspense, and I'm published by Inklings Publishing.
Awesome.
And I have, yeah. So I've got two short story collections that have already been published, and then my first novel coming out this fall.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's always exciting to see a new book come out. I don't care how many I publish.
Yes.
It's kind of like that new car smell. You just can't get enough of it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's I'm very excited since this will be my very first novel. There's a certain kind of love that goes into a novel that I think is different than crafting short stories. So yeah, I'm very excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us, how did you actually decide to become a writer?
That's a good question. Well, when I was a child, I was a voracious reader, and it just kind of naturally started to happen where that's kind of how I sort of, I don't know, understood the world around me. It just made sense for me to write what I was thinking. And then it really started to become fiction, and as I got older, once I got into college, I got some opportunities to do playwriting, and that was really fun. But then I realized, kind of going through that, I realized I really wanted to, write short stories and novels. I took a little break for a while, and we had kids. And then, it was like calling me again, and I'm so glad I picked it back up.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've pretty much been doing this pretty much your whole life.
Yeah. I mean, writing is kind of my identity. Like, even when I wasn't writing, when my kids were infants, I still was I felt that I was a writer, and I felt like I needed to get back to it, and it was kind of that struggle. And so yeah, writing is definitely not something that I just kind of decided one day I wanted to do. It's always kind of been in the fabric of who I am.
Absolutely, and I think that's one thing that writers kind of have in common, even if we go years. And for me, I took about a 10-year sabbatical, raising kids, where I didn't really write anything other than on a blog occasionally. But yeah, even then, once you consider yourself a writer, I think you're always going to consider yourself that, even when you're not actively writing.
Yeah, exactly. It's you feel that pull, and I think there's a certain brain that us writers have, and I think we're always kind of falling into those kind of, like, I call them, daydreams, basically, of like creating those stories in our head. So even if we're not physically writing it down, I think we kind of all have that sort of mindset.
Yeah, always plotting the next big thing.
Yep.
Speaking of plotting, so are you a plotter or a pantser when you write?
Oh, wow. I think a little bit of both. I'm not a super organized person, so I'm not the type of person who has everything written out. I really admire that, but I don't know. For me, I kind of lose a little interest. I've tried it before, and I felt like, I don't know. For me, I personally like not knowing what's going to happen and kind of just writing and seeing what's going to happen, and kind of figuring out along with the reader, which, sometimes can be trouble. Like for a short story, that's okay, but I noticed for my novel, I struggled a little bit more not being an organized person, because a short story, that's, pretty easy to just get away with not doing a lot of organization. But I noticed with the novel, I had to kind of pull back and be like, okay, what are my goals for this next part? And so, depends. It depends. But, yeah, I definitely probably more go by the seat of my pants.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of writers are like that. I'm personally like that. I find someone had said that they were a plantster. They kind of did a little merge of both, and I'm finding what I'm doing is I'm kind of writing whatever comes to mind, and then I'll get to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm kind of stumped, so let me sit here and I'll think about it, kind of stew on it for anywhere from a couple of days to a couple of weeks, trying to think, how do I want this to end?
Yes.
How can I, merge this in, and, what do I need to happen next? So not necessarily something that I write down, but definitely it's going in the back of your head. How can I fix this, or how can I, get it to the next level or move it forward? So, yeah, absolutely. What's been the hardest thing about – I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, then you're even, like, more, I feel more immersed in what you're doing. And then you are, like, even when you're not writing, you're like, oh, my gosh, I know what to do. And it's just such an exciting experience when that happens.
Absolutely. What's been the hardest thing about being a writer for you?
Well, I love being a writer. I think it's the greatest job / hobby on the planet. But I think for me, it's balancing the creativity with the marketing, with the all the other aspects. Even just doing it and being a mom of small children, I've realized now the best thing to do before they get home on the bus is like to give myself a 20-minute cushion between writing and them coming home, because it's very hard when they come home and I'm still kind of in the writing zone, and then it's like hard to really pull myself out. So I'm finding ways to deal with that. But yeah, I mean, definitely just the balance of I want to do all the creative part, just like everybody. I want to do that, 99.9% of the time. So finding ways to, get out there, network, selling events, marketing, all those things can be challenging, especially for someone like me who, just like most writers, is introverted and, so yeah, that's a challenge sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's a challenge for everybody, especially in this day and age when you've got so many writers and novels on the market. It's just getting harder.
Yes.
What's been the easiest thing?
The easiest thing, I have a group of women that are writers, and I love getting together with them. We meet a couple of times a month, and it's just like so fun. And, all those people in my life who aren't writers, like my husband, he's so understanding, he's so helpful, but he just doesn't really understand what it's like to be a writer. So it's so nice to connect with people who are writers and work with them, but also just hang out. And that's probably one of my favorite things about being a writer.
Yeah, I think that's kind of everybody. It's nice to get in that zone and talk to people who kind of get it, because being a writer, and I guess maybe this probably goes for every type of different artist there is something about being around other people that have that same creative mindset. I've always gravitated towards musicians. Music has been a huge part of my life, even more so than writing and books. So I've always gravitated towards the musicians, and just being around them and being around that creativity, there's just nothing like it. Being able to bounce ideas off of everybody.
Yeah, it kind of fuels you, and I would leave those exchanges like feeling really, jacked up and like ready to go write and create. And so yeah, I agree. It's intoxicating to be around similar people.
Absolutely. Apart from writing, what else do you like to do? Do you have any hobbies or anything that you like to do during your what little bit of off time you might have?
Oh, wow. I'm like, wow. It's hard to even think. I absolutely love to read. I love I'm a big consumer of, great television shows. That's, what I like to do late at night to kind of unwind with my husband. We just bought an RV, so we're going to be trying camping with our kids, so that'll be kind of an adventure. So, yeah, I like to do lots of things, but right now I feel so extremely immersed in writing. It's hard to kind of poke my head up out of it and find other aspects of what I like to do.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you currently binge watching?
Oh, gosh. What am I binge watching lately? Good question. Oh, my gosh. Well, I mean, obviously I write horror, so I love, The Walking Dead, great shows like that, Bates Motel. But I love every genre of show and movie. So, yeah, no, I love it all. So that's sometimes a struggle because it's like, oh, I really want to watch a new episode, but I really have to write. So I've noticed toning down on how much TV I watch really helps in the evening get a little more work done, especially the evenings I try to kind of focus more on, marketing and those kinds of things. So, yeah, try to pull myself out of Netflix. Sometimes that's not so easy.
Yeah, if it was not for the DVR, I would either get any writing done at all, or I would never get to watch my show. So I tend to
exactly.
Yes. So I'll do that. I'll DVR everything. The night it's Friday night, so I'm going to write, and then I'll binge watch everything. I'll take a night off and I'll sit and just watch all of my shows for that week in one sitting.
That's perfect. That's great. That's something to look forward to. It's kind of nice, especially when you get to that part in your writing where you kind of don't want to be doing it anymore. It's nice to have a treat, you're going to have at the end of the week. I like that.
Absolutely. How much of your books are realistic or based on real people or events?
Oh, good question. Well, some are and some aren't. I'm really focused on kind of my main thing that I'm most concerned about is really having complicated, interesting women in the horror suspense genre. When I was growing up, I didn't feel like I was represented the way that I wanted to be in horror fiction and in horror movies and shows. And so for me, I really try to focus on a female character. And I always think that female character has some sort of aspect that probably comes from somewhere deep within me, just like most people, I think, when they write. I think there's that thing that they're trying to work out. For instance, I wrote a short story called Guts about a woman who is trapped in a hospital. And I wrote that story because I have an autoimmune disease called Crohn's disease. And I was like, I really want to write about somebody who has my disease. How can I do that? And, I ended up learning so much about myself through the process. It sounds cheesy, but I feel like writing real life things can really help you kind of process. I think that's kind of one of the great things about horror too. It helps you kind of process kind of scary things in life. And so yeah, I definitely, one story I wrote called "There's Something About Birds" is about a mom who runs away because she feels so overwhelmed by her children and all her responsibilities. And of course, I wouldn't do that, but as a mother, and I've had mothers who've read the story and like come to me and been like, oh my gosh, that resonated with me. So yeah, I think it's absolutely vital to have some piece of something within a story that is real.
Wonderful. How much research goes into your work?
Oh, wow, good question. Well, my second book I wrote, it all takes place in a fictional town that's based on a little town here in Minnesota. And I actually ended up doing a lot of research because I was doing a lot of historical stories. Like it would be, I did like an 1890s story. I did everything, 1950s, that kind of thing. So that took me down lots of different roads. And for instance, in one story that takes place in the 30s, I researched an actual mill explosion that happened in Minneapolis. And I because there was going to be a mill explosion in this story. And so, you know, there's a lot that goes into it. But, like, I don't complain at all because I'm so happy we have, you know, Google and the Internet now because, of course, you know, I was a literature student, so I know how to research with books, but it is very handy to be able to go on and do research right there on your laptop. And so, yeah, and I end up kind of going down these rabbit holes and really enjoying it. So I feel like I learned something. But, yeah, definitely the second book I ended up doing a lot more research because, yeah, I had to learn about some past times, and I want to make sure I'm accurate.
Absolutely, and you're right. Google is so handy. I've discovered no matter how simple of something I'm trying to write, I don't believe that there's been a single thing that I have written that I did not have to research something.
Right.
One of the hardest things that I did in one of the books that I wrote, it was, you know, about a rock band that was, you know, traveling across the country, and I was having to get, you know, the timeline just perfect, and I sit here Googling to see, you know, what the drive time is in between these two cities so that I can make sure, you know,
of course.
You know, that I don't have them, you know, showing up or hitting the road at 3 o'clock in the afternoon doing an 8 o'clock show when it's going to take them 12 hours to get there. So, and oddly enough, you would be surprised at people that's going to realize, hey, you can't drive from there, you know, from A to B in, you know, 3 hours unless you flew there. So, yeah, you definitely have to be diligent.
Yeah. Oh, you do. It can totally pull somebody out of the story. Like, and I think we all know those people that are just like really, they're on that thing. Like they're just, it's the same people who when we watch a movie, they're like, oh my gosh, you know, they're holding a cup in a different hand than they were holding it earlier or something. Like there's those type of people that they just really are good at those details. And yeah, I'm probably not the greatest at that. So that's why, thank goodness, I have editors to go, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. And yes, Google, thank goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. What's a typical writing day like for you?
Oh, good question. Well, I'm lucky now because my youngest just started full day kindergarten. So I was waiting patiently for that day to arrive, and now, once I get my kids on the bus about 9 o'clock, I actually am able to focus. I feel very privileged because I get to focus on writing from about 9 to 3 most days. And I know that, you know, most people don't get to do that. So it's been it's literally just started a couple months ago. So before that, I was finding time, you know, when my son would go to preschool, I would, you know, do it for a couple hours here and there. And so now I really feel that I am able to really devote as much time as I can. And then I balance, I do my career stuff, and then I've been making a little money on the side doing some ghostwriting, which has been interesting. So I kind of oscillate between those two during the day and take my lunch break, and it's been really nice. I feel kind of spoiled, actually.
My day is usually, you know, work full time, and I don't get home until just about 6 o'clock every day. And by the time I get home, I've already been up for 14 hours. So,
oh my gosh.
So it's come in.
Good
you know,
for you.
You know, it's not out of, you know, choice. You know, still kind of.
I hear you.
But it's difficult. It's difficult enough when you do get to write full time. You know, and I tell people, you know, I kind of have the best of both worlds because I'm not sure. You know, there's days that I'm tired and I don't feel like writing, and I'm not sure if I was able to write full time. If you know, if it would start to feel so much like a job that I hated it, like I do, you know, my regular job. So there's some days that, you know, I'm kind of glad that I work so that, you know, when I get home, you know, it's like switching a whole new mindset. But it does get difficult.
That's true.
You know, to come in after you've been awake for 14 hours and you've been at work, you know, for 11 of those.
Well, you
come in.
You have a good attitude about it, though. You have a very good attitude. And that's why I know so many writers in your position, and that's why, like, I always am just like, I am so lucky, and I never complain because I'm like, you know, I really, and then they're like, I live in Minnesota, so there are snow days when, we have a blizzard and then the kids are home. And I was like, wait, I was going to write all day. And then I remember, oh, wait, just last year I didn't even get a whole day to write ever. So, I'm getting spoiled quick. But, you have a really good attitude about it, because that is, I admire people who are able to, come home and do all the, especially women, that it's International Women's Day. So I'm going to celebrate women who come home and you have so much to do. You have children to take care of. You have a house to take care of, just all those things on top of working. It's just, I think I'm absolutely in awe of women who can then create from that. I just think it's so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a lot of people like, wow, you produced 3 books last year. How did you manage that? And I'm like, determination. Pure determination. But the weekends, that's pretty much literally all I do all weekend, especially, if I'm on a deadline or I'm actively in the middle of a book. It's nothing for me to end up doing 20,000 words in a weekend. So,
wow.
But
good for you.
Sit here and just, pound them out. I may spend 12, 14 hours at this computer doing nothing but writing. So, I have to play catch up. But everybody's like, how do you manage to get that many books out? And I'm like, well, you have people that write full time that'll, push out 12, 14, 16 in a year, because they're spending 15 hours a day, every day, doing nothing but writing. Like, if I had the time, I could probably do that too. But there's sometimes that it's just, you can sit down and just write, and then there's other times that I don't even want to look at my computer. So I'm like,
yes,
can't do it, can't get in that mindset. I'm going to go watch The Walking Dead. It'll be all right.
Yeah, my husband will say, oh, how was your writing day? And most of the time it's good, and then there are other days I'm like, it was like pulling teeth. Like, I just felt like, I couldn't even get one good sentence. You just have, everybody has those moments.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I've kind of, I start off trying to force myself. I'm like, okay, when I'm actively writing, I try to get between 500 and 1,000 words every day. And, I will sit there, and if once I start writing, if it comes and I can get those 1,000 words in and it's all good, fine. But if I'm struggling and I'm sitting there and I've rewritten the same sentence a dozen times and it's been a half an hour and I'm just not being productive, I don't force it. I know there's some people who say, oh, just keep writing, but I'm sitting there staring at a blank screen. So I just, that's me. I just cannot force it.
Yeah, I agree. That for me is, when you're forcing like that, you just have to say, I don't think there's anything I can produce that would be good right now anyway. I'm wasting my time. And then sometimes I try to switch gears and go into like marketing type things. So at least I feel like I'm being productive. But I hear you.
And I'm the same way. I'll make teasers, book covers. I'll go and start. Thank you, everyone, for joining me tonight. Until next time, this is Nicola Matthews saying peace, love, and books, y'all.